And the last example I want to talk about is another example, modeling example, and this one talks about the cost factors when owning a car, that there are many cost factors like gas, maintenance, and insurance. And we are talking in this example about operating a Chevy Cobalt. This particular example tells us it's 25 cents per mile plus $3,000. Okay, so this last sentence is really the important part. The first question tells me to write an equation that relates the cost, which would be y, to the number of miles driven, which is x. Okay? So the cost is y. I'm going to write this over here. I'm going to write it over here. Y is the cost, the operating cost, and x are miles driven. Okay, and that's important for us. So if I wanted to know slope, all right, slope is actually the change in the y's over the change in the x's, which is really the operating cost over miles driven. And they really gave this to us. We don't think of this very often, but when they gave us 25 cents per mile, they said 25 cents per 1 mile. They gave us the slope right there. Okay, so we can just think of that as, so the slope, let me write this like this. So in other words, slope is 0.25. Okay, and we know that it's in the sentence it says it's 25 cents per mile plus $3,000. The $3,000 is our starting point for the year. If you had this car sitting in your driveway and you didn't move it one bit and you didn't put gas in it, you didn't maintain it, you didn't have insurance on it, nothing, it would still start out being $3,000 flat out plus the rest of the stuff, according to this model. Okay, so our y-intercept is our starting point, and that is why we get $3,000. So I can write my equation. I'm going to write it in blue because I'm losing track here. My equation is y is equal to 0.25x plus $3,000, and that is the equation for this model. Now this question, the next question said, well, what is the annual cost if I drive at 11,000 miles? Remember, x is the miles, so I'm looking for y. So I just substitute these values in up here, and I say y is equal to 0.25 times 11,000 plus 3,000. Plug it into your calculator. You'll find out that that is $5,750 to drive it 11,000 miles. Okay, now we're going to graph it. And I cheated and I put the graph in here already. Notice that we didn't use the 25 cents, which was the slope, to graph it. Instead, I used 2 points. I used my intercept, and I used this information right here, the second point. The 11,000 miles driving it costs me $57.50. Those are the 2 points that I used to graph this line or this data, because the slope, if I was just to, how would you graph 25 cents when you're talking about thousands of dollars? That wouldn't be very realistic. So instead, we're going to start it, we have our starting point, we have another point, we draw a line. If we wanted to interpret the slope, we could certainly say that it's for every mile we drive, each year, for every mile we drive, it costs 25 cents to operate, that kind of information.